what if the next chapter of Heartland doesn't just bring change, but completely reshapes everything we thought we knew about Amy and Lyndy's future? Season 19 doesn't waste a single moment. From the very first episode, it becomes clear this is not just about horses anymore. It's about legacy, growth, and unexpected turns that will challenge Amy in ways she never imagined. As a mother, a horse trainer, and as a woman still healing from the past. And for young Lyndy, the path she's stepping onto will take her closer to her roots and deeper into the kind of wild, untamed world that once shaped her mother's soul. Heartland Season 19 opens with a quiet, almost symbolic shift in energy. The ranch, which has always been the heart of the show, feels both familiar and subtly different. Time has moved on, but the land still whispers stories of the past. In this season, those stories don't just stay in the past. They begin to influence the present, especially for Amy and Lyndy. Lyndy, now older and more curious than ever, is not just a child watching her mother work. She's beginning to ask questions. She wants to know what it means to truly understand horses, to connect with them, and most importantly, to carry forward the legacy that once began with her great-grandparents and now rests unknowingly on her small shoulders. Amy sees this transformation unfolding in her daughter's eyes, and it brings both joy and fear. Joy because she recognizes that deep connection, the same one that once defined her own path. Fear because she knows the pain, the risks, the heartbreaks that come with a life so deeply entangled with animals and people you love. This conflict creates one of the most compelling emotional undercurrents of the new season. Amy must now figure out how to protect Lyndy without limiting her, how to teach her without projecting her own past, and how to step back just enough so her daughter can find her own path in the same world that once broke and healed Amy countless times. At the ranch, familiar faces provide support, but there's a subtle tension in the air. Jack watches over the family with quiet wisdom, offering advice when needed, but letting Amy take the lead. Lou juggles her duties as mayor and sister, and even Georgie returns briefly, adding layers to Lyndy's exposure to strong, independent women in her family. But it's not all warm reunions and peaceful mornings. Changes in the local community are putting new pressures on the ranch. A neighboring property has been sold to an unfamiliar buyer, someone whose presence raises questions about what they really want from the land next to Heartland. This background tension builds throughout the early episodes and is likely to become a bigger problem as the season unfolds. Meanwhile, Amy begins to work with a new, challenging horse, one that refuses to be understood in the usual ways. This horse, scarred by past trauma, mirrors something deeply buried in Amy herself. As she struggles to connect with it, she begins to realize that her own healing might not be as complete as she believed. The sessions become less about training the horse and more about rediscovering her own resilience. And surprisingly, it's Lyndy, with her untouched intuition and fresh eyes, who begins to make progress where Amy stalls. It's a moment of awakening for Amy. Her daughter is no longer just watching her, she's becoming her. Yet, in all this growth, questions linger about Ty. His presence, though gone, feels stronger this season. Amy starts having dreams, not the usual kind, but vivid ones, with Ty's voice guiding her through difficult choices. Are they simply a reflection of her internal struggles? Or is the show hinting at something deeper? The audience is left guessing, and that mystery adds a layer of suspense that keeps viewers emotionally hooked. Is it closure that Amy's reaching for, or something else entirely? As Lyndy's bond with the horses grows, so does her courage. She begins exploring parts of the ranch on her own, building a small world that feels both magical and meaningful. She stumbles upon her grandfather's old journal tucked away in the barn, and within it, stories from a time long before she was born. She begins to see herself not just as Amy's daughter, but as a piece of something much bigger, the Heartland legacy. The final moments of the first section leave us with Amy standing at the edge of a pasture, watching Lyndy ride for the first time without help. There's pride in her eyes, but also a flicker of fear. The same fear Marion once had watching Amy take her first solo ride. Time moves in circles at Heartland, and now the circle begins again. Lyndy's confidence is growing, and it shows, not just in how she rides, but in how she talks, how she walks, and how she asks questions no one is quite ready to answer. Amy watches her daughter blossom with a sense of wonder, but also a quiet unease. Every step Lyndy takes into the world of horses brings Amy face to face with her own past. Not just the good parts, like her bond with Spartan or her early days learning from Marion, but the darker chapters too. The loss of Ty, the moments when pain nearly broke her spirit, and the heavy burden of keeping the family together while carrying her own grief. That grief, though buried under years of healing, begins to rise in subtle ways. Amy finds herself growing more protective, almost anxious, when Lyndy attempts tasks that once seemed second nature. It's not about a lack of trust. It's about fear of history repeating itself. Heartland has always been a place of recovery, but also of risk. And now, Amy must confront the hardest part of being a mother, letting go, even a little, so that her child can grow. Outside the ranch, new tensions begin to ripple through Hudson. The mysterious new landowner next door starts making changes to the property, clearing out old trails, putting up fences, and bringing in unfamiliar horses. Jack is the first to raise concerns. Something about the man feels off. Too quiet, too calculated. He doesn't attend local gatherings, avoids conversations with neighbors, and seems to be keeping his distance for a reason. When Amy tries to introduce herself, he politely declines, saying he prefers to work alone. That's not the Heartland way. In a place built on community, silence can be more dangerous than noise. Lou, ever the problem solver, tries to dig into his background but finds very little. No social connections, no history in Hudson, just a name and a legal deed. It doesn't sit right with her, and soon others begin to feel it too. What does he want with the land? And why now, after all these years? Meanwhile, Georgie's brief return home triggers an unexpected emotional wave for Amy. Seeing Georgie, strong and independent, reminds Amy of all she once hoped for herself and Ty as parents. Georgie notices Amy's sudden emotional distance and confronts her. The two share a difficult but healing conversation. Amy admits that as Lyndy grows, she feels like she's losing pieces of Ty all over again. Not because she doesn't want Lyndy to grow, but because every milestone is a reminder that he's not there to witness it. But Georgie, wise beyond her years, reminds Amy of something powerful. He's there, just not the way you want. But Lyndy, she's part him. You're not losing him. You're raising him through her. That moment becomes a turning point. Amy starts to embrace Lyndy's growth not as a threat to Ty's memory, but as a continuation of it. She allows her daughter more freedom, encourages her to take more responsibility with the horses. The two begin working together more closely, not just as mother and daughter, but as partners in the legacy of Heartland. The mystery of the new neighbor deepens when strange behavior is observed. One of Heartland's horses goes missing for a few hours and returns with a minor injury. No one knows what happened. Cameras are installed, and Amy begins to suspect that someone might be testing boundaries, not just of land, but of trust. At the same time, whispers about Season 20 begin to circulate behind the scenes. Cast members drop subtle hints in interviews. Could Season 19 be setting the stage for the end? And if so, what kind of ending is worthy of a show that has meant so much to so many? Amy, now facing changes both inside her home and outside her ranch, finds herself drawn to Ty's old journals. She hasn't touched them in years. But one night, after a particularly emotional conversation with Lyndy, she opens one and finds a passage that speaks directly to her current fears. Ty had once written, "The scariest thing isn't losing what you love. It's loving again after loss, but that's the only way to live fully." Amy closes the journal with tears in her eyes. The message is clear. It's time to start living fully again. As Section 2 ends, a storm rolls in, literally and emotionally. The air is heavy with change. At the ranch, lights flicker, horses stir restlessly, and in the shadows, the camera lingers on the neighboring property, where someone is watching. Not just the land, but the people on it. The future of Heartland has never felt so uncertain, but it's also never felt so alive. As the days unfold at Heartland, a strange feeling begins to settle over the ranch. Not fear exactly, but a sense that something is coming. Amy can't explain it, but she feels it in the quiet moments, when the horses pause and look toward the fence line, when Jack takes longer than usual walks without saying why, and when Lyndy, still innocent, asks strange questions like, "Why does that man next door always stare at us?" Amy brushes it off with a smile, but inside, she's uneasy. The silence from their new neighbor has gone from mysterious to unsettling. Something doesn't feel right, and she knows better than to ignore her instincts. But Amy's mind isn't only on the neighbor. Her attention is pulled in many directions. Lyndy is beginning to show exceptional sensitivity with horses. One day, during a routine session, a young, recently rescued mare refuses to respond to Amy's methods. But Lyndy, standing quietly in the corner, walks forward without fear. She doesn't speak, doesn't rush. She simply reaches out her hand. The mare, who had been tense and skittish for weeks, takes a step forward. Then another. Amy watches in complete silence, overcome with emotion. Her daughter has the gift. Not just skill, but that rare, almost spiritual connection with animals that once defined Amy herself. It's a proud moment, but it's also sobering. Amy realizes that her daughter is no longer just a child in need of guidance. She's becoming a force in her own right. A new era of Heartland is dawning, and with it, new responsibilities and new risks. Amy begins to question whether she's been too focused on protecting Lyndy instead of preparing her. And as Lyndy steps into this legacy, Amy wonders how she can help without holding her back. Meanwhile, Lou's world is spinning in its own orbit. The pressures of being mayor are piling up. Budget issues, public complaints, and whispers of corruption in town contracts. She's also trying to balance her role as sister, mother, and leader. Her relationship with Peter is stable but distant. They're both too busy, too distracted. It feels like they're always just missing each other. She confides in Jack, who, with his usual quiet wisdom, says, "Sometimes we fight to hold it all together. Other times, we just need to let go of what we can't carry." Lou doesn't have time to fully process his words because trouble is brewing faster than anyone expected. One morning, a Heartland horse is found injured near the fence line. Deep scratches, panicked behavior. It's not from running. It's as if something or someone spooked it. Surveillance footage reveals a figure near the edge of the neighbor's property late at night. The footage is grainy, the identity unclear. But it's enough to raise alarms. Jack wants to confront the neighbor, but Amy insists they wait. Not out of fear, but strategy. She's not ready to risk open conflict without more information, so they begin gathering it. Lou pulls property records, Lisa talks to connections in town. Tim, who's been unusually quiet this season, begins to ask questions too, digging into his own network. What they find is surprising. The neighbor, known only as Cole Harris, has a background that doesn't add up. A former horse trainer who suddenly vanished from the competitive circuit 5 years ago. No public records of recent employment, no social media, just a quiet purchase of land near Heartland. At the same time, Amy stumbles upon something in the barn that stops her heart. An old saddle that belonged to Ty. It had been packed away since his death, but now it's lying out in the open, cleaned, restored. She didn't do it. Neither did Jack or Lou. Lyndy says she found it in the attic and thought it was beautiful, so she brought it out. But what catches Amy's attention is the way the saddle's leather smells. As if someone else recently oiled it. Someone who knew what they were doing. That night, Amy has another dream about Ty. But this one is different. It doesn't feel like a memory. It feels like a message. In the dream, Ty is standing at the edge of the ranch, looking out toward the neighbor's property. He doesn't speak. He just turns to Amy and gives a look of warning. She wakes up shaken. Are these dreams just a projection of her anxiety? Or is her subconscious picking up on something she can't yet explain? Elsewhere, Lyndy begins to form a strange kind of fascination with the neighbor's horses. One afternoon, she sneaks off and approaches the fence, watching them from afar. One of the horses, a tall, jet-black gelding, approaches her slowly. They share a brief moment, calm and wordless. But before she can go any further, Amy finds her and pulls her away. She's not angry. She's scared. She warns Lyndy to never go near that fence again. And Lyndy, sensing the fear in her mother's voice, quietly nods. Tensions rise further when Georgie, preparing for a major competition, suffers a minor accident during training. Nothing serious, a sprained wrist. But it rattles the family. Georgie confesses she's been feeling off lately, like something is pulling her focus. She describes a strange feeling, like being watched. Not in town, not at the competition grounds, but at Heartland. She hasn't told anyone until now because she didn't want to worry Amy. Now, she's not so sure it was just in her head. The entire family begins to sense that something invisible is threading through their lives. It's not just about a neighbor with a secret past. It's about the past itself, resurfacing in ways they never expected. Memories, symbols, warnings. Amy starts to wonder if Ty's presence is more than just a feeling, if he's trying to protect them from something they haven't yet uncovered. The section closes with a rare, silent dinner at the ranch. Everyone is present, but the mood is tense. Outside, a cold wind blows across the land. In the distance, a single light flickers from the neighbor's property, then goes out. Change is coming, and this time, it may be something Heartland has never faced before. The calm before the storm doesn't last long. Tensions that once simmered beneath the surface now begin to erupt, not with explosions, but with quiet ruptures that cut far deeper. Amy's unease is no longer just a feeling. It's reality. The mysterious neighbor, Cole Harris, finally steps into the spotlight, not because he chooses to, but because Heartland can no longer ignore him. It starts when another horse goes missing, this time from a neighboring ranch. The community, already buzzing with rumors, begins to murmur louder. Amy, Lou, Jack, and Tim gather to discuss what they know so far, and Lou insists they involve local authorities. But Jack, ever the old soul, believes in facing problems directly. Sometimes, he says, you've got to look a man in the eye to understand his truth. Amy agrees, but only if she can go with him. They arrive at Cole's property at dusk. He's there, quiet and unreadable, leaning against a fence post. The tension is thick, but Jack keeps his voice steady. He doesn't accuse, he asks. Cole listens, then responds in a low tone. I came here to be left alone. I've got ghosts, too. You all aren't the only ones trying to heal. It's the first sign of vulnerability. Amy picks up on it, sensing something deeper. Cole admits that he lost a daughter years ago. A young rider, much like Amy, who died in a tragic competition accident. Since then, he's lived in silence, cut off from people, from horses, from hope. But when he heard about Heartland, the ranch that helps heal broken animals and people alike, he bought land nearby, trying to feel something again. But his trauma, like Amy's, has made him guarded, and at times, careless. He denies having anything to do with the injuries or missing horses, but agrees to allow Heartland access to his property to help ease the community's fears. Amy believes him, but Jack remains cautious. Truth doesn't always ride in on a white horse, he warns. Meanwhile, back at Heartland, Lyndy begins to act out. Small things at first, ignoring bedtime, staying longer at the stables, but it escalates. She takes Spartan out alone without telling anyone. When Amy finds her near the trail, Lyndy's explanation shakes her. I just wanted to see if I could hear Dad too. It's the first time Lyndy admits that she's been feeling Ty's presence, in dreams, in whispers, in the way the wind moves through the barn. She's not scared. She feels guided. But Amy is overwhelmed. Her own dreams of Ty have become more vivid, too vivid to dismiss. That night, Amy confesses to Lou something she's never said out loud. I don't think I ever truly let him go. Lou listens in silence, then replies gently, Maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe you're just supposed to carry him differently now. The turning point comes when a severe storm hits Hudson. Power lines are down, roads are blocked, and Heartland is cut off for the night. In the chaos, another horse disappears, this time from Heartland itself. Panic sets in. Jack, Tim, and Georgie ride out despite the weather. Amy stays behind with Lyndy, trying to calm her, but it's Lyndy who leads Amy to a discovery. She insists she knows where the horse is. Against all instincts, Amy follows her. Through the rain, through the mud, to the edge of Cole's property. There, inside an old, half-collapsed barn, they find the horse, injured but alive, and beside it, Cole. He had found the animal wandering and tried to keep it safe from the storm, but couldn't reach out due to the phone lines being down. This act shifts everything. The accusations, the doubt, all begin to fade. Cole isn't the enemy. He's a broken man trying to do right, just like the rest of them. Amy, drenched and breathless, helps him get the horse back to Heartland. It's the first true collaboration between them. And something unspoken passes between them. Not romance, not yet, but mutual understanding. Two souls, scarred by loss, finally reaching a place of peace. Back at the ranch, the family gathers, weary but united. Jack quietly admits he may have misjudged Cole. Lou, moved by the night's events, makes a public statement the next day, thanking the community for their concern and encouraging unity during uncertain times. But one mystery still lingers: the dreams. Amy returns to Ty's journal and finds a final note she had overlooked before. In it, Ty wrote, "If love survives death, then I'll always be where you need me." That line becomes a balm for Amy's aching heart. She begins to understand. She's not being haunted, she's being held. In the days that follow, Lyndy resumes her training stronger and more connected than ever. Georgie decides to extend her stay, feeling that something is keeping her grounded at Heartland for now. Jack starts to rebuild one of the older barns, saying it's time to prepare for whatever comes next. And Amy? She starts to smile again, not just in memory, but in hope. Hope that life doesn't end with loss. It evolves. As Section 4 closes, the camera would linger on a new sunrise over Heartland. The storm has passed. The land is still. But something has changed forever. The past has spoken, the present has been tested, and the future, still uncertain, feels full of promise. Life at Heartland begins to settle, not into the old routine, but into something new. The storm has passed, both the one in the sky and the one in their hearts. But like the land after heavy rain, everything feels changed. Softer, wiser, deeper. Amy now walks through the ranch with a new sense of presence. She still misses Ty. That ache hasn't vanished, but it no longer drags her down. Instead, it walks beside her like a shadow that no longer frightens her. She's begun speaking of him more freely, even laughing at old memories. The silence around his name has finally lifted, and with it, a deep emotional weight. Lyndy, too, is thriving. Her bond with horses is stronger than ever, and Heartland's staff begins to take notice. Some say she's a prodigy, others simply say she's her mother's daughter. But for Amy, watching her grow is more than pride. It's a reminder that Ty's spirit lives on in more ways than one. Lyndy carries pieces of both her parents, Amy's calm strength, Ty's brave heart, and she's beginning to forge her own path, step by steady step. But the peace doesn't mean life is without challenge. Georgie, back in full training, begins questioning her goals. Is competition what she really wants? Or is she being pulled towards something more meaningful? After her strange experiences this season, she starts volunteering with troubled teens, using horses as therapy. What began as a side project now feels like a calling. Amy supports her, seeing echoes of her younger self in Georgie's search for purpose beyond the spotlight. Tim, after years of avoiding his health, finally opens up. He admits he's been feeling off lately. Fatigue, memory slips, a pain in his side that won't go away. Lisa insists he see a doctor, and the family rallies around him. It's a rare moment where Tim, always the stubborn cowboy, lets his guard down. Though the tests are ongoing, it's clear his storyline this season will explore vulnerability and the strength that comes from leaning on others. Lou, meanwhile, is offered a promotion, a chance to enter provincial politics. It's everything she's worked for, but it would mean leaving Hudson for long periods. Her decision is complicated by her daughters and by Peter, who finally confesses he's been thinking about moving back to Vancouver. Lou is torn. Her career and her family are pulling her in different directions. When she asks Amy what to do, Amy says something simple but profound. Maybe it's not about choosing what matters most. Maybe it's about finding a way to carry it all without dropping yourself. And then there's Cole Harris. The neighbor once feared, now understood. His quiet presence lingers throughout the last stretch of the season. He helps Jack reinforce some fences, volunteers during a local horse rescue, and slowly begins to earn the town's trust. But his relationship with Amy remains respectful and distant. There's a mutual respect, an unspoken bond, but no rush to force something more. The audience is left to wonder, could he be something more in the future? Or is his purpose simply to remind Amy and the viewers that healing sometimes comes from the most unexpected places? As the season builds toward its finale, the writers begin planting seeds for what might come next. Rumors swirl around CBC hinting that Season 20 could be the final chapter of Heartland. If that's true, Season 19 carries the burden of preparing fans for goodbye, but not through sadness, Through celebration, Heartland isn't just a ranch. It's a legacy, a place where stories live, where people grow, and where love, real, painful, enduring love, never fades. The last scenes of the season bring back familiar elements. Amy and Lyndy ride together across the golden fields, laughter echoing in the wind. Jack and Tim sit on the porch with mugs of coffee, old wounds slowly healing in the comfort of time. Lou watches her daughters play and whispers to herself, "Whatever happens next, we'll face it together." And then, as the screen begins to fade, a surprise moment, Amy receives a letter. Old, yellowed, postmarked years ago but lost in a mail delay. It's from Ty. A final note written shortly before his death, never seen until now. In it, he writes, "If you're reading this, it means life went on. And I hope you did too. I hope you found strength, not just in the horses or in Lyndy, but in yourself. And if there's ever a day you feel lost, just look at the mountains. I'll be there. Just look for me in the wind." Amy's eyes fill with tears, but not of sorrow, of peace. She folds the letter gently and places it in a wooden box with Ty's old journal. Outside, Lyndy is waiting with Spartan, ready for another ride. Amy steps into the sunlight, lifts her face to the breeze, and smiles. The season ends not with answers, but with possibility, because Heartland has never been about endings. It's always been about the ride. So, as the sun sets on another unforgettable chapter of Heartland, one thing becomes clear. This isn't just a show, it's a heartbeat. It's the quiet strength that carries us through our hardest days, the hope we cling to when everything feels uncertain, and the memories that remind us who we are and who we've loved. Season 19 wasn't just about horses or heartbreak or healing. It was about growth, about stepping into the unknown when the past still pulls at your heart. It was about Amy finding the courage to smile again, not because the pain disappeared, but because she learned how to carry it with grace. And it was about Lyndy, so young, yet so full of promise, stepping into her own destiny, one quiet hoofbeat at a time. There were moments that broke us, and moments that gently put us back together. The whispers of Ty's presence, the aching silence in Amy's eyes, the soft echoes of laughter around the dinner table. All of it reminded us why we fell in love with this story in the first place. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. And now, as fans around the world wonder what lies ahead, whether season 20 will bring a final goodbye or another beginning, one thing is certain: Heartland has never been about the destination. It's always been about the journey. Through storms and sunrises, through grief and growth, through love that never dies, and family that never lets go. Maybe that's why we keep coming back. Because in a world that moves too fast, Heartland slows us down. It reminds us that the most powerful healing doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens day by day, ride by ride, breath by breath. So wherever you are, whether you've watched from the very beginning or just discovered the magic of the ranch, know this: you're part of the Heartland family now. And families don't say goodbye. They simply ride together into whatever comes next. Let the story live on in your heart, because Heartland isn't just a show, it's home.